It was June 25th, 1967, that KPBS television went on the air for the very first time. Back then, the call letters were KEBS for educational broadcasting, and all of this took place right here. Well, actually, across the SDSU campus in a much smaller production facility. In the early years, there was a pioneering spirit in the staff and an experimental atmosphere. It's fun to look back and exciting to realize how much has changed and progressed in KPBS television's 40 years.
I think when you talk about KPBS television, you have to give some credit to KPBS Radio, and specifically to the founder of KPBS Radio, Dr. Ken Jones, because he had started the radio station on the San Diego State campus in 1961. Also because involved at that point too was John Witherspoon, who actually helped write the Public Broadcasting Act and who was a professor here at San Diego State.
I started at KPBS in 1968, part-time as a student, working for the radio station. The first time I appeared on KPBS television was as a student. We did student productions over in the telecommunications and film department. And when I actually was able to get on the air myself, I thought, wow, this is just great. That's great.
When I came to San Diego State in 1969, one of the first things that happened, and I always look back at this as being one of the truly great things that happened for me when I came to San Diego State, was somebody in the office said, oh, you're a new student. You should go and talk to Bob Wallace in the scene shop. KPBS is looking for student assistant workers for pay, even though it was like $1.65 an hour. So that's the very first thing I did. Even before I signed up for my classes, I went and said, yeah, I'd like to work on the KPBS production crew. We built sets, we ran camera, we were production assistants. Some student assistants were handling audio, doing the technical directing, the switching, whatever needed to be done. Student assistants were assigned. Then when I graduated finally in 1972, I became the KPBS studio supervisor, which is a position I hold to this day.
With KPBS, when I started, I got that sense of the missionary spirit. It was as though we had an idea. It was a brand new idea. It was kind of an experiment. We were dedicated and we were adventurous. And I think in 1969, my feeling was that I was part of an adventure.
It was a very exciting time. It was a very innovative time. It was a time where you felt like you were doing a different kind of television that was really more important, more noble. You really were trying to do programs that spoke to people and made a difference.
When I arrived in January of 1973 and met with Don Benke, I was a volunteer that first semester, so I was very excited to do whatever I could do. And then when the semester started in September of 1973, Don hired me to be on the payroll. And it was fun. We worked on an awful lot of shows, and a lot of the times it was, you know, the old expression, ready, fire, aim. We were shooting from the hip a lot of times.
What it was like in the early days at KPBS is that we were almost like a family, and the university gave us the music auditorium and said we could use it for a while for a TV studio, what we called Studio C, the C being for color, because up to that point we were in black and white. And so we got in there the very next day and started tearing out the stage that was in there. We took out all the chairs off the floor. A contractor came in and leveled it and put the studio floor down. And we managed to find enough power and get enough circuits going to start doing full-time production in Studio C in 1971. And our current associate general manager, Tom Carlo, being a student assistant at the time, one day was plugging a patch cord into the light panel, and
oh God, I forgot all about that. We were working late one night on a performance show. I'm talking about real late, maybe 2 o'clock in the morning or something. And
he had turned his head to see what was going to happen when he plugged that in, and lo and behold,
I think I lost count of how much lights I was there. And as I turned on the switch, The normal thing is not to look at the switch, but it would be to look up at the light to make sure when you hit the switch that the light would come on. So when I hit the switch and I'm looking at the light, Don Benke's going, oh, the light just went off, and all of a sudden I felt this this burning sensation on my hand, and I looked and it was like a torch.
Literally, there were sparks coming out of the hole where the patch had been.
And it was just streaming out to me, and then the whole lighting board lit up like a Christmas tree. Don Benke came running over and hit this big breaker arm, shut the whole thing down.
Nobody was hurt, nothing happened, but from that day on, he was known as Sparks Carlo.
We called it the Sparks Carlo Memorial Lighting Board from that point on.
Don Benke is I think he's one of the pillars of this station, and has been since the time he went to work for the station. I remember there was something we used to do called auction.
Now auction was a very exciting thing, because we did the auction, our first one in 1974 and our last one in 1987. And Ken Kramer was the host of auction year after year after year. And it was very, very exciting.
Okay, welcome back to Board B. All right.
The whole concept of the TV auction was that merchandise was donated from around the community and even from corporate offices around the country, and that merchandise was then auctioned off live on television. We would go on at 6 p.m. and show the items. Each item had a number. People would call in and bid on that. We had a phone bank of 60 people sitting answering phones and letting the callers know what the current bid was on the item they were interested in. It was a very elaborate arrangement, and there was lots of room for just plain fun and fun ad-lib comments and things that I remember from the auction. I know Ken Kramer would probably remember the night that was like a Friday night. We called it Hat Night, and everybody had come wearing some funny hat.
That's right, it's hat night, and everybody's been wearing a hat but me, and I was the one who said I'd be wearing hats here during the course of the night, so, I'll be wearing a hat too.
Ken Kramer was talking at the end of the evening, getting ready to do the credits for that night's donors, and we put a hat on his head while he was talking, and then 30 seconds later, while he was still talking, we took that hat off and found somebody else's hat and put it on him.
Come on out here, Don Benke. Here's our studio supervisor and curator of hats.
He would always wear the same shirt. And the reason he wore it is because it sort of pinched in a certain way that a pocket flap here would just rise up. I don't know, he'd flex his muscles somehow, and his pocket flap would flip up. He was a very, very funny guy.
I don't think we can go too much farther without bringing out our co-producers here of the entire event, and I hope they will both come out on camera, Peggy Cooley and Tom Carlo.
It's all gone really well, I think, on the air. It's been a little hectic behind the scenes. I'd like to thank all of the entire crew, Don Benke, his entire crew, Phil Doucette, and all the directors, Don Johnson, Mike Stark, and all the people that ran audio. But I'll tell you, the key to this whole thing that makes it look so smooth and everything, I really like to thank is Ken Kramer for the outstanding job.
I think the best years of working at KPBS were the years when Ken Kramer was here.
When you look back at our history, there are so many events and people to think about. But there has been one familiar face who's been both behind many local programs and the host of them that's pretty hard to ignore.
I was a Gloria fan from the beginning. I said, here's somebody who has credibility and respect and dedication, and we need to figure out a way to keep her at the forefront of some of our programming because she has a lot to bring.
Gloria was the first what I would call star I ever got to know. But she also produced on the side. She produced a lot of the programs, and she produced a lot of documentaries. And I really respected her for everything she did. She became an expert in every subject matter. She constantly researched everything. And for me, a real defining point, I think, in our relationship and my career was in 1974 when I was a student here making $1.89 an hour. She actually gave the go-ahead to hire me to be the cinematographer of a documentary she was producing at the time. And she gave me my first real chance to be the lead cinematographer, and it paid off because a year later I was awarded the Emmy for cinematography.
One of the things that I always consider the memorable times working at KPBS spans several decades, and those are the programs that we did with Gloria, hosting her interview shows. Gloria Penner Interviews was one of the names of the show, and I think that name was reincarnated in various different times over the years, but they were very simple shows, usually one-on-one, with very interesting folks from the community.
Gloria Penner in Conversation. Today's guest, San Diego Superior Court Judge Patricia Benke.
About 30 years ago, I'm not sure exactly, Gloria Penner interviewed me, and I was the chief of police at that time. And well, the role of KPBS and Gloria was kind of unique in that it was not, I want to know about you, I want to know about the problems and what are you doing about them. And she was very much accountable, but did it in a professional, decent way.
Her interview style is very educated, very thoughtful, very thorough. And I had the occasion to do some interviews with her where we were interviewing political candidates. And I would have my list of questions where, this is what I think is an important question, and she'd follow up. And I thought, well, that's brilliant.
I was a big promoter, a passionate backer of the idea of bringing political candidates into the KPBS studios, into a forum where they could actually tell us what they believed in, and also to respond to concerns and the agendas that we as the public had. And so every year that there was a race, we did a ballot program. I enormously enjoyed meeting these people.
The 1970s were very exciting because we were all young, and that's the way public broadcasting was. It was in its infantile state.
It was a time when I think this station was getting its legs. It was being established. We did shows, I think, that were innovative, that were sort of pressing the technology of that time.
United States and British Foreign Minister David Owen presented Smith with their plan.
Panama today, hundreds of stone-throwing.
Newsthink. Insights beyond the headlines. This edition of Newsthink examines the deeper issues of public nudity stirred by the Black's Beach controversy. Your host for Newsthink is Gloria Penner.
70s, of course, is when we really got into the television production with the new studio. And one of the things about that studio that everybody remembers that worked there was that we didn't have any air conditioning.
And also to explain that the candidates are not going to be wearing their jackets because the temperature in the studio is very, very high.
We had Spartan facilities. Our film production unit and our editing room for film was in an old apartment building off of College Avenue. And since I was low man on the totem pole, one of my other jobs was cleaning the bathrooms once a week after all the guys that were in the editing rooms and everything was. So, it's just part of the Spartanness of us in our beginning stages, But it was a lot of fun.
In the 80s, we started to get into things that were a little more sophisticated, started to get some outside clients that came in.
This is a production of KPBS Television.
We did a show over several of the decades called Club Date. And we basically took the studio, turned it into a nightclub, put up a stage, put some nice cool lighting, and it was a real treat to be able to work on those Club Date productions.
We were producing a tremendous amount of content and experimenting with shows that created this atmosphere of enthusiasm and innovation and excitement that was just great to be a part of. As we got into the 80s, it was just so much fun.
Hey kids, come on, it's the KPBS Kids Crew. Way fun! Excellent!
In the 90s, I think that we really became much more sophisticated. We did work with more clients. We did more of our own local productions, and we just got better at everything that we did.
What's up? Onika here, just kicking it with KPBS.
Hey everybody, get up and whoopee size! It's time to whoopee size, make your body strong.
From the day I arrived in 1973, there was this vision of building a building that all of KPBS could be housed in. And I'll never forget, we broke ground in September of 1993, and I think one of the most exciting days of my life at KPBS is when I helped wheel over all of my stuff into my brand new office in December of 1994 here at the KPBS Telecommunications Center. That was exciting, that I was finally coming to work in a real television and radio broadcasting facility.
In the late 1980s and early 1990s, the General Instrument Corporation was one of the places that was developing digital television. And in 1991, we cooperated with them to broadcast the very first high definition, or we should say, the first digital signal on the planet. Our Channel 15 transmitter on top of Mount San Miguel was the first place in the world to broadcast those digits using the DigiCipher system, which turned into the system we now use for digital television.
With so many different programs, TV specials, auctions, pledge campaigns that came and went over the years, I'm sure that everyone who was a part of it has collected some great memories.
I remember the first edition of On Air magazine.
I remember working on the Lemon Grove incident. I got a local Emmy Award for doing the set.
I remember that our apartment building used to have a swimming pool. And after a hard day of work, I decided that I would dive in the pool from the upper deck of the balcony over the cyclone fence and made it. I hit the water and made it, but I think I was the last person to ever swim in the pool.
I think if there had come some awful moment where they had said to me, we need to have you volunteer a little bit more than we can afford to pay you, I was enjoying it so much. I felt that what we were doing was so important, that we were on the side of the angels, that we were just doing something that mattered so much that I would have said, okay.
I think the future is one of the most exciting parts of KPBS because technology and the way people are using media and getting their media is changing so much.
There's no describing our new media department because they change every day. That's what they're supposed to do. They're in new media. So if you look at our website, you'll see we're giving people a lot of access points. We have blogs, we have commentary, we have participatory games, and we have content from radio and television that's repurposed for the web.
Whether it's podcasts on the web or downloaded information or information, local content that we produce that goes to your cell phone. It's exciting to see our staff really immerse themselves in what this new technology is doing with the end goal of delivering the public broadcasting type of content we've always done to our people.
Children, niños,
lifestyle,
vida,
current affairs,
actualidad,
and much more.
en VME.
Well, VME has been a long time coming. You know, almost from the very beginning, public television said, we need to find a way to reach diverse audiences. Finally, now we have a 24-hour service. So for San Diego and our particular community, this service is going to be meaningful and it's going to reach a lot of people. I think KPBS as a 40-year-old television station may be analogous to a 40-year-old person. You know, you're old enough to have had some experience and to have made some mistakes, but to have recovered, but you still have hopefully more than half of your life ahead of you.
It's a different station than it used to be. It's grown up, it's become a part of the city in a very integrated way. It's part of the fiber now of this community, and it's something I think you should be very proud of.
40 years of KPBS is really special to me because even though I missed the first 2 years, I feel like I've been involved with KPBS through its entire existence, and having been able to work with virtually every person that ever did work here. I always think back fondly of the fact that we always felt that we were family and that the people we worked with were our friends and spent a lot of good time on and off the job.
It's a sense of family that the station has. My heavens, it's been my family for almost 40 years. If I didn't like this family, I wouldn't be here.
We will only just remember how it feels. Our lives are made in these small hours, these little wonders, these twists and turns of fate. Time falls away, but these small hours still remain.
One of the things that I've loved so much at KPBS is the drive and the dedication of people who work here. They're not only wonderful people and almost like a family, but there are people that are very driven for the mission of what public television and public broadcasting stands for.